Welcome to The Flirty Vegan, the podcast that motivates you to thrive through plant-based living. I'm your host, Jenny Shafitz, certified life, breathwork, and vegan lifestyle coach. After decades of dieting and deprivation, I found the secret to living a compassionate, nourished life. Whether you've been vegan for years or you're just flirting with the idea, prepare to be inspired by real people who courageously chose health and love. It's time to look better, feel better, and do better. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Flirty Vegan Podcast. My name is Jenny Shafitz and I am thrilled to be your host. I am also a certified trauma-informed life coach, breathwork facilitator, and vegan lifestyle coach. And all of that means that I am trained and honored to serve as a wellness advisor, really. Someone who will guide you on the journey of going plant-based, but also taking into consideration your real life, your challenges. And I'm here to share knowledge, hold your hand, celebrate your wins, and help you achieve your goals, which likely include feeling really healthy and looking good. And there's no shame there. Those are my goals. So let's do it together. Now, if you're a loyal listener of this show, you may remember my episode with Dr. Frank Sabatino. And he mentioned the Healthful Living Ocean Retreat that he hosts once a month in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Well, I had the very special pleasure of attending the retreat this past week. And I dragged my husband along with me, which was really not that difficult since it is literally on the beach. So it is a spectacular location, so beautiful. Got to wake up to the sunrise over the ocean out my window every day. And it was just an amazing experience. My husband and I opted to do the juice fast version. There's also a water fast and a regular food option, which for Dr. Frank means whole food, plant-based, no salt, oil, or sugar. And frankly, it was fabulous. Even when my husband started eating the food after finishing the juice fast, he said it was delicious. Meals that he wants me to continue making at home. So it was a really life-changing experience going through the juicing, doing all of the personal growth work, hearing Dr. Frank's knowledge about nutrition and wellness. Overall, the experience was so nourishing for body, mind, and spirit. So I highly recommend you check out Healthful Living Ocean Retreat with Dr. Frank Sabatino. It was just a fabulous experience with really beautiful people. And I'm truly grateful for Dr. Frank, his co-host Terry, and all of the lovely people who were there with us. It was a treat. It was a treat, and I hope to be back. So if attending a health retreat is on your list as a way to support your journey, then I recommend that one. And I will include the link in the show notes. Now, today is a really great interview with someone named RaeSikora. Sikora. I heard about her in Angela Crawford's book, The Vegan Transformation, and I had interviewed Angela a while back. Rae's story is really powerful, and when she tells it, there are some graphic elements to it, so please be conscious of who is in the area when you're listening. RaeSikora Sikora has been a spokesperson for animals, the environment, and human rights for over 40 years. Her programs have been changing people's vision of what is possible to create in our lives and in the world. Rae has worked internationally with participants ranging from teachers, students, and prisoners to businesses and activists. As co-founder of the Institute for Humane Education, Rae created interactive critical thinking tools that are now being used by people around the globe. Rae holds degrees in cultural anthropology and environmental education from the University of Wisconsin. She draws from years of experience to help individuals and groups discover how implementing changes personally and locally can bring about positive change globally. Additionally, Rae was selected by the North American Vegetarian Society as the 2013 recipient of its Vegan Hall of Fame and is co-author of Plant Peace Daily, Everyday Outreach for People Who Care. Her semi-fictional memoir, Little Jew on the Soul Train, is currently available on both Amazon and Ingram Spark. And before I get into the conversation with Rae, I want to announce that I am relaunching the virtual group program, Plant-Based Basics, and I invite you to join. It is a 6-week program starting on Tuesday, April 21st, and I will go through all of the aspects, all of the things involved in transitioning to a plant-based diet. So we'll talk about what plant-based even means, how to create a plant-based kitchen, all of the many health benefits, all of the diseases and conditions that are reduced by eating this way, and then how to go about living like this in the real world with other people, with celebrations and events. So it's a very low cost program. Grab a friend, check the link in the show notes, or go directly to theflirtyvegan.com/group program, and let's begin. Let's get started on the plant-based journey, and we'll do it together. It'll be fun. I promise. I will show you how delicious, nutritious, affordable, family-friendly, and really exciting the plant-based world is. So now, without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Rae Sikora. I'm so excited to welcome Rae to the Flirty Vegan. Rae, hi.
Hi, everybody.
Yay, this is so fun. I love when I've gone down the rabbit hole listening to someone consuming so much of their content and their interviews, and then I get the privilege of sitting across from them for myself, and it's like, ooh, yay.
We're having dual privilege.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you. I received that. So, Rae, this podcast, this is so exciting for me because I have this huge privilege of sharing inspiring people like yourself with an audience of predominantly midlife women, but others included, who are, as we say, flirting with veganism. They never thought, they didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going vegan today. But there's been little thoughts, little ideas percolating of, I want to get healthier, or I really know I shouldn't be eating animals, like I've heard stories, but they don't know where to begin. So hopefully this show is a way for them to get more inspiration, encouragement, fuel behind that decision. And so someone like you has a lot to offer in this space.
I just love that is what you're doing, because it's, even though once you've been vegan for a long time, it doesn't feel overwhelming at all. It's just life. But I still remember when I first started, it was like, what the hell am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What am I going to do? How am I going to deal with social situations? It was completely overwhelming. I made crappy food that I'm sure like turned a lot of people away from veganism for a long time until they found a better cook. And, it was just a lot. It was a lot. And now it's hard for me to think about how it isn't just really simple, but I can go there if I think back.
Yeah. Well, so I do need you to go way back for a moment, because the first question I want to ask you is, and I, given how much of you I have consumed, which I guess sounds really gross as a vegan.
No,
but,
I like that. You can consume me.
I know part of this answer, but for the listeners, I would love for you to share what attracted you to veganism.
Well, I'll put it in a quick nutshell. When I was 15, I was my whole life up until that point, I ate a lot of animal products. I ate meat probably 3 times a day, every meal.
Yes.
And snacks.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue, yet I identified, and other people identified me as an animal lover. But I never made the connection. Then I walked into a leather shop with my friend Deb, and we walked in, and there were some skins hanging in there, and the smell, and I said to her, don't buy anything in here. It's dead animals. I had just eaten a hot dog before we came into the place. And the woman behind the counter heard me say that. And she asked me one question. I wish I could go back to that woman and say, you changed my life. All she said was, do you eat meat? And my 15-year-old brain, whoa, what does meat have to do with animals? I'm not kidding. That's where my brain. And then boom, Then boom, I made the connection. I said to her, no, I don't eat meat. And then my friend looked at me like, what the actual hell? Like,
right. I just saw you.
I just saw you down a hot dog with barely chewing it, you know? And so we got out of there and she said, why'd you lie in there? I said, I didn't lie. I said, never again. I will never eat meat again. So at that point I was vegetarian, still consuming like cheese and eggs, like it was my last meal.
Yeah.
And then I just started learning about things. I thought, I want to know about when I pay for something or my family pays for something, what are we supporting? And I started doing a boatload of research on it, but I still was just vegetarian, but I wanted to know more. I think that's part of the key. I'm like a curious person. It helps if someone's curious and interested in the world.
Yeah.
And I had a landlord who was a dairy farmer when I was 20. And one day I heard a sound from his place. I'm like, whoa, that is intense. Got on my bike, went over, and he had these male calves. He was pushing up a ramp with another guy, and some of them still had umbilical cords. You know, it was intense. And I asked him what was going on. He said, oh, it's the males. You know, they're going to Menominee. And I was like, well, what's there? He said, oh, the veal farm. I think he called it a farm. And I was like, veal? And I knew about veal because I had started exploring things. And the sound I heard was not just the babies crying for the mamas, it was the mamas behind the barn pushing against barbed wire, trying to get to their babies, and their mouths were open in screams. And then they were pushing on the barbed wire and there was blood here. And I came out from behind the barn and I told my landlord, never again, I will not consume dairy. He said, oh, you know, they'll get over it. You'll get over it. I said, I don't want to get over it. I do not want to forget what I just saw. And, you know, he's explained to me there was no need for the males because he said, you know, Danny was the regional artificial inseminator who went farm to farm. You know, Danny. So, you know, we don't need the males because Danny takes care of.
Yeah. Does the work for it. Yep.
Yes. With his arm up there. And I walked away. I was stunned. You know, I got on my bike and I biked to my place, which was on his land. And it changed my life. That witnessing, I thought, I need to witness more. I need to really know what I'm supporting and if it fits my values. I didn't know the word vegan, but I started exploring. And so when I found out about eggs, I stopped doing that. So I stopped all animal products, but I still didn't know the word vegan. And I think it was, I don't know, a year, maybe even more. And I met a woman who called herself vegan. And I was like, what is that? And when she told me, I'm like, oh, that's a word for me. I have a word for me. You know, so then I knew the word, but she was just traveling. So I didn't have a single other person, you know, who I knew who was on the same path. And now even I don't call myself vegan, really. I say I'm practicing veganism when I remember to do that, which is pretty much all the time. Because I feel like we have to stay open to new information, you know, and if I say, this is what I am vegan, that's it. That's final. I'm practicing it and I'm open to any new ideas issues that people bring to me. And yeah, I always want to be open to the truth. And so, yeah, so it's a real, it definitely steered my life. You know, this new awareness that there are things going on behind closed doors, closed gates that we don't know about and we're paying for and basically voting for with our dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you say you're open to other ideas, I mean, you're not open to eating animals again, are you?
Absolutely
or
not.
Okay.
I'm open to actually being stronger in my veganism.
Okay.
And even after 50 years of being vegan, I learned new things, you know, and I'm not somebody who wears those eyelashes that people now put on. They look odd to me, but whatever. Anyway, I'm not one of those people.
I don't even know how to put them on. I mean, they look good
Yeah,
on people, their eyes pop, but I don't even know how to do
maybe
that.
your eyes pop enough, you know, but then I found out, oh, they come from mink, who are like basically living just tortured lives. So I learned about that. And I'm not one to keep my suggestions or thoughts to myself. So, if I see somebody with them, I'll ask, oh, just wondering if you were aware of what the source is for those. And usually they say no. And then I give them the choice. Would you like to know more about where they come from, even if it might change your habit of wearing them and buying them? And usually people say yes, because it's the rare person who will say, oh, you're offering me something. Oh, no, thanks. It's very rare. So usually people say yes, but I'm not someone who will keep that information to myself. I feel like we get to share that with each other in a non-judgmental or non-angry way. We get to invite people to make more educated choices.
Do you ever find that when you are offering information or suggesting, may I share something that I've learned with you, and you start in your example of mink originated eyelashes, if you were to start to say, it's a very cruel industry whereby the mink live in captivity, and but like at that point, do you encounter people who la 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 la, okay, I'm good, I don't want to hear anymore?
Rarely.
Wow.
Rarely do I encounter that. I think there is definitely a way to read people, and it's like, read the room. Is this a good time to bring it up? Is this a good way to bring it up? And even you've probably heard it all. People say to me, oh yeah, I used to be vegan, which is a really foreign concept to me if you knew all the issues. Oh, I used to be vegan. And that one used to kind of stump me a little bit when it first started happening. I was like, well, that's odd. Me, who usually is not at a loss for words, I'd be like, that's.
I think those are the people who also used to be on Weight Watchers, used to do Jenny Craig. I mean, I don't know
Yes.
how you can used to care about animal agriculture and now don't. I really think
Yes.
I used to be plant-based is really maybe what they're trying
Exactly.
to
It's
say. Yeah.
rarely is it an ethical
Yeah.
vegan who
Yeah, I
does
don't
that.
think,
But
which is why I asked you to clarify what you were saying. Like, is there actually going to be something that comes out in a scientific journal that says, actually, Rae, the it is
animals
good to
have no
keep,
sentience.
right, it is good to keep 40,000 birds in a barn on top of each other. I don't we renege on what we said earlier.
It's definitely not going down that road.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just if somebody says that, it's rare now that anybody says that to me. I don't know why. But when they have, I just say, oh, how does that feel? How does it feel to you to have once done something that felt probably close to your heart, and then to not do it anymore? Is that hard? I ask them, I want to know their experience. And you probably know, since you've seen some of my stuff, that is my tool. I ask people a boatload of questions. I want them to come to their own conclusions, because me pushing a bunch of stuff on them, they're just going to toss that aside. And I want them to have their process. So I love it, actually. One of the funniest times it happened, this is kind of unrelated to vegan, but it relates to communication. So I was on an airplane next to this woman, and there's me. I had just come out of the garden. I had Teva sandals on. I could see my feet were a little bit muddy, but whatever. And I'm on this airplane, and I'm next to the shiniest, glitteriest, pink everywhere, perfect makeup person. And I'm more
She had the
feral.
mink eyelashes on too.
Probably,
Yeah.
you might have.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm more feral,
Yeah.
I'm not very domesticated. She was really domesticated. And then I thought, wow, this is interesting. I'm on a flight with her for 7 hours. And she kept staring at my feet, staring at my feet. And I said, is there something about my feet that's interesting you? And she was like, like busted. And she said, oh my God, she said, I think you're the bravest person I know. And I said, brave? Tell me about that. What about my feet makes you think I'm brave? She said, I would never go out without my toenails polished.
Yep.
And I said, oh, I don't think I've ever gone out with my toenails polished. I said, and then I said, this is so cool. Like we're obviously different worlds, but we're together for 7 hours. How about we share each other's world? We can ask any questions. I'll tell you about my world. You tell me about your world. She said, oh, okay. And so first thing she said was, I would never live more than 5 minutes from a spa. And I said, oh, I didn't know what a spa was. Like, I thought it's this thing you put in the bathtub and it swirls the water. So I said, can you explain a spa to me? She said, you don't have a spa? I said, no, I don't think so. And she said, well, who does your skin? And I said, who does my skin? I said,
I do my skin with a bar of soap and water.
I said, I don't have anyone who does my skin. She was horrified.
Yeah.
And so it was this wonderful conversation. Of course, we got into the whole vegan thing and animal rights thing because I'm like rescuing animals all the time. And, you know, it was obvious. Plus, we got a meal there and she was like, whoa, because I got a nice meal. And, you know, so it was wonderful for me. Like we could ask any questions. And that's what I want. Like, I think I kind of picture this. I've pictured it for a long time in communication. There's a door here, like on someone's heart. And that door, either it's going to, from your conversation, it's going to open wider or it's going to slam shut. And I just think when we listen more, when we try to understand rather than always trying to be understood, that door is pretty wide open. It does not slam shut. And I mean, I've spoken to hunters, dairy farmers, you name it, people who kill fish, like all of it. And I love those conversations. Like that is my favorite, is when we can have a conversation. You know, I was at a veg fest in Alaska for a couple of years. I spoke at their veg fest and wow, it was great because people were bringing their husbands who were like fishermen.
In the
Some of
industries.
them did the whole ivory scrimshaw.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was a whaler. And I was like, yes, there was a hunter. And that's much more interesting to me to like have that conversation about that.
Okay, so then on that note, I heard an interview where you did tell the story of the hunter on your property who had a problem with your signs, and you had this lovely conversation with a man and his bow who wanted to hunt on your
His
property, and you
bow,
said,
not his girlfriend bow.
right, right, his bow and arrow, because he wanted to kill things. Um, when you're at something like an Alaskan Veg Fest and you're surrounded by people in the industry, people whose livelihood is based on killing animals, what is a message that you show up with to that conversation?
I think it's the same thing that I use everywhere else. It's I want to understand them.
Okay, so let's say this is my job. There's way too many of X species in the world, so it's my job to help reduce that. And also, Rae, this is the world we live in. We need to kill animals to create, population balance and industry and the wheels of capitalism moving. Go.
Are you referring to hunting? I have to be a little bit
All
specific.
of it, I guess, hunting,
Okay.
crab fishermen, whatever it is.
Okay. So I have never done that. I have never um, killed an animal for food. I have never gone fishing. I have never gone hunting. I have never shot a living being. So explain to me what goes on inside of you when you do that, how you are able to do that to this other living being. Do you have to do something in your mind that tells you they don't feel anything? Or and were you always like this? Were you always someone who could do that, or even as a small child, or did you have to be trained to be able to do it and not feel sad? And that's where I would go with this person. Like, what is it that brings you to this point? I want to understand them. And they get to share that with me. You know, there was a woman, I was hiking a while ago, and there was a woman fly fishing in a river as we were starting our backpacking. And I said to my friends I was backpacking with, I said, oh, I'll catch up. I just want to go have a chat with this woman. And they're like, of course you do. And so I went and I asked her, I said, I just have questions because I've never done this. She said, okay. And I said, when you're doing this, if you had more awareness of how much pain they feel, or if they could express the pain that they feel, would it change your mind in terms of doing this? And she said, oh, maybe, probably. And I said, what got you started doing this? She said, it was the only activity I shared with my father. And I said, so is your father still around? No, he's passed away. I said, I'm so sorry. And I said, so is this your way of sort of feeling that feeling you felt with him? So mainly, I am pretty much people's first contact much of the time with someone who has a different way of looking at living beings. Maybe I'm the first. I don't have to convince that person of anything. I think that's really is a flaw in how some people might approach it. Like, oh, I have to change this person.
Yeah.
That's not your job to change that person. It's your job to plant a seed of possibility. That's it. And maybe they'll bump into another person and another person. And they say it takes like 3 encounters, some people more. And I believe that. So I don't know if I'm the first, I don't know if I'm the second, whatever. I just have to be genuine and caring with that person, form a quick friendship so that we can have a conversation. And she and I talked for quite a while. And I actually had a hard time catching up with my friends.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, was it nightfall and they're like, where's Rae? She's still in the river.
So yeah, we chatted for quite a while, and she ended up she was teary. And I said, I just see you have a big heart, and you miss your dad. And, you might want to research what's going on in the fish that you are doing this to, because now scientists have discovered they have language, they have family relationships. They're very gentle creatures. And, you're just such a loving person. You probably would want to look further into that. That's it. And then it's out of my hands. And my partner, JC, I mean, he's used to it. He lives with me. He's used to it. He and I were going into hardware store, big hardware store, Lowe's or something. And I see 2 people coming out. This is in Santa Fe. I don't see fur coats. It's a very progressive place. I don't see fur coats really. And this man and woman were both wearing full length fur coats, like actual fur.
Wow.
And so I say to JC, oh, I'll see you in there.
Here she goes again.
I'll see you in there. I'm going to go have a little chat with these folks. And he's like, I think I'll just observe. Because sometimes I guess he finds it entertaining.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's kind of like, well, I could go watch Saturday Night Live or I could watch Rae.
So I followed this couple to their car. It was a real fancy convertible, but it was covered at that point. And I looked at their license plate. It was a Florida license plate. It was like a Save the Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, woohoo.
That's fun.
This is good.
There's my opening.
So I tapped on the window and he was in the driver's seat and the window came down and I said, hi. And they said, hello. And I said, I saw your license plate, the Save the Dolphins license plate. Yes. I said, so animal lovers? Yes. I said, fantastic. I said, as soon as I saw that license plate, I figured. And I said, so you really care about dolphins and probably other animals? Yes. And I said, great. I said, then I have an invitation for you. And I think they were thinking it was for a party or something. Both were like
sounds
leaning
like
in.
it.
Yeah, like they leaned in like an invitation.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I said, I would invite you to go online and research the amount of violence and cruelty that went into your coats, because you're such caring people. You would never want to continue supporting that. As I said that, his face moved forward and the window started going up.
Yeah.
And she leaned forward. She said, I'll look into it. I said, great, because I know you're both caring people. That was it. And then that was it. Went into the heart store. So the thing with being an activist or communicating issues, you don't necessarily get to know where the seeds that you plant get watered and fertilized in the future, if they grow into something, what they grow into. You don't. Occasionally I get to find out. People will contact me and say, remember you were in my high school doing a program, and now I'm doing this. And I'll be like, whoa, that's so great. They have a sanctuary or they're full-time activist, or it's fantastic when I do get to find out, but I'm not attached to that. Like, I just feel like I'm taking up some space on earth, and while I'm here, I might as well encourage people to be more loving.
Now, have you ever had situations where before that window's rolling up, someone says some really nasty words to you, or, spits on you, whatever? I mean, that's extreme, but how do you manage those situations where it's not an open, balanced conversation?
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of that. I've had
Okay.
beer bottles thrown at
Oh,
me.
wow.
I have been spit on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I threw that out thinking that had to have happened.
Of course. In all these years, of course, that's happened many
Right.
times, actually.
Oof.
You
How
know,
do you deal
in
with
those,
that?
in those situations, I have to first look into what's my intention.
Mm-hmm.
That's my numero uno. Oh,
Okay.
what's my intention? Like, I feel like if somebody comes at me like that, sometimes I'm just standing peacefully with a sign at a rodeo protest or circus protest, just peacefully
Mm-hmm.
standing there. And somebody feels the need to do that. And I stop myself from reacting right away, because it could be like, oh, you're going to show up with anger at me. I'm going to show up with anger at you. And I just take a breath. I mean, I have people give me the finger all the time at
Mm-hmm.
rodeo protests, and I have to train people like who are at the protests. Like, our entire message is compassion. I don't care what
Yeah.
someone says to you, throws at you, does to you. Your message is compassion. And most people they get with the program with that. But people are like giving us the finger like so much. And I just came up with something that's fun for me in those situations. Somebody gives me the finger and I yell, oh, in my sign language, that means I love you. And and it just makes me really happy. And some of the other protesters started doing the same thing. I love you too.
That's good.
Because there's nothing I can say to that person that is going to make them shift. They're not going to shift from being the person who gives me the finger when they're driving by, going to a rodeo.
Yeah.
To somebody, and it's okay. It usually throws them off a little bit, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And even like we were at a circus protest, and the head of the Shriners in New Mexico, he was drunk as could be. So there were a bunch of us. They were just peacefully holding signs at the circus. And he came up to me drunk right in my face. God damn you, you bitch. Rah, rah, rah. He just was going, I know you took down our signs all over town. And I just let him keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. And then he said, next year. And he was like this close, and he smelled so strong of alcohol. He was so drunk. And he said, next year, I'm going to put up cameras. And I was like, oh, at every sign? Yeah, at every sign. I said, oh, so if I was the person taking the signs, for instance, hypothetically, if I was the person taking the signs, now I would get a camera at each sign too, that I'd get a lot of cameras. And he was like, oh. And then I don't engage too much. Somebody's drunk, I definitely don't engage too much, but I'm like, I got kind of excited. Cameras. And there was a police officer who was just monitoring the whole situation with the protesters, and he came over and put the guy in his squad car. And
nice.
Yeah, and the guy also yelled at me. I said, I'd love to have a discussion with you about this another time, but we could have a discussion. And then I reminded him, I said, you and I were supposed to be on a radio show together to present both sides, but you didn't show up. You lying bitch. I'm like, well,
Here we go again.
That question. All right. Like, whatever. It's not personal. He doesn't know me.
After a very successful first round of the Plant-Based Basics virtual group program, I am excited to announce that I am launching the second cohort, which will start on Tuesday, April 21st. This program is for people who are flirting with veganism and people who want to get healthier, look better, and feel great right in time for the summer season. So head to theflirtyvegan.com/group program or click the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. Okay, so I have only been vegan for 5 years. So
only.
Okay, no. I say that about as I lead into something else. So for my kids are 18 and 20. So for the majority of their lives, I was a meat eater, a meat purchaser, a leather purchaser, a consumer of all things, regardless of its origin, including taking them to things like the circus, the zoo, SeaWorld, you name it. So when you know, when you see, you've seen, you can't unsee, you can't unhear the cries that you heard. That's with you forever. But for the people who haven't seen and heard, who are just living in this a truly blissful ignorance, like that is their good fortune, maybe, to be in that blissful ignorance. How do you handle that? I mean, obviously you're only one person. You can only be in one place at one time, speaking your words and having these lovely, compassionate conversations. And I had the word compassion in my notebook circled because that was the one thing I wanted to bring up with you. How do you, I don't know, stay light and loving and positive when there is so much blissful ignorance out there?
Ooh. I mean, the violence and cruelty is surrounding us all the time. So, we walk through a grocery and we see something very different than most people going through a grocery. And we are hit with it constantly. We're driving down the highway and one of those transport trucks comes by with pigs or calves or whoever is in there. And most people they drive by it, not a thought. Mm-hmm. Me, I sob.
Yes. I sob at the thought of it if I haven't seen it. I mean, hearing you tell that story, which I've heard now in every interview of yours I've heard. I've heard that story countless times and I cry every time.
Yeah, it's so hard and the despair is intense. So I have to work probably, and any of us who are aware of the violence toward non-humans, humans, the environment, anybody whose eyes are open, I think we have to work harder at balance because we have so much coming at us. I've seen it with so many animal activists where the despair takes them down to a point, they disappear. They either just disappear off of social media and from conferences, or they disappear off the earth. I've had a few really dear friends who have committed suicide because they couldn't handle the pain. So I think we just have to put this effort into it. Like when I said I'm kind of feral, it's because I hang out in nature, non-human places every time I have an opportunity. And that's a lot. I make the opportunities, and people say, God, you hike alone a lot. I say, I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by trees and all kinds of animals. And I'm never actually alone out there. Plus I have my dogs with me. Like that's
Sure.
none of that is alone, just the
Right.
trees alone. And I could be delighted, so I think it's doing like what really nourishes us. Because if we spend all day going down those rabbit holes on social media and looking at what is going on in the world, we will hit despair. The problem is, it's not like we live in a little village and we only have to handle what's going on in our village.
Yeah.
Our immune systems, our emotions are not built to handle knowing what is going on everywhere in the world. But we know what's going on everywhere in the world, and we can't handle that load. We cannot. So it takes some discipline. We have to take space away from that. I go, whenever I get a chance, I snorkel with my underwater family because that's my closest family and I love them. Those things that feed us. And, I dance at least twice a week. I go to a huge dance with a bunch of people. We're like a very diverse group of wild chimpanzees is what it looks like. We're just like, we're going crazy, and it's wide open, vulnerable. There's people who cry because it's so open. There's people who are laughing. Nobody is worried about what anybody thinks of them. And that's one of my nourishing things. I think that for each person, maybe it's different. What is it that makes you feel like full of life? And for me, I mean, people ask me, even my mom, I'm here with my 99-year-old parents, and my mom said to me the other day, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm working on getting a home for this dog, online. I think I have a few people, da, 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 da." She said, "Well, what's the story of the dog?" And then I start telling her, she goes, "Oh, no, no, no." She didn't want to know. And she said, "I don't know how you do what you do all these years, like that, saving these animals from these different horrendous conditions." And what I told her, I'll tell you, is I said, "Well, that's part of what nourishes me. I'm doing something. I can't save every animal. I can't, but I have saved thousands, and they have a life. And that brings me incredible amount of joy. It's very sad too, of course. I see the condition they're in, but that's something I can do something about. And when I can do something about it, I'm going to do it. 99% of the time, there's something we can do about what's going on. 1%, maybe not. I mean, I kind of thought of that percentage just off the top of my head or whatever, but
that makes sense.
I was working I was working in the Middle East with teachers, 400 teachers, and all simultaneously translated Arabic, English. And I get some tough ones. There's a lot of male teachers there. I get tough ones. And one guy, first, I have him for 5 days for the trainings, and I'm training them in a compassion curriculum that's used in the schools.
Nice.
And one guy, first day, he said, "I'm only here because I will make more money. I get credit for coming to your class, da, 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 da. But I am not going to take any of your ideas into me. I am not going to change the way I live." I said, "Okay, fair enough. Hold that thought. Let's revisit you on Friday. We'll come back to it, and we'll see if you still feel the same. And if you do, fine. I'm not here to make you be anything. I am only here to help you align your daily choices with your values. Only you know your values. So let's do our week, and then we'll come back to you on Friday." "Okay, but I'm not going to do anything." I'm like, got it. Fine. And then the next day, it was Tuesday. We had done all day Monday. We had done up to lunch on Tuesday. And then I came back from lunch to prep for the afternoon session, and I hear somebody coming down from the 8th floor where the lunchroom was, screaming, "Rae, Rae!" And I'm like, whoa, somebody must have fallen, or I'm thinking something horrible happened. So I race up the stairs, and he says, "Come, come, come, come." And we go to this window, and there's a dying bird on the windowsill, but it's the 8th floor. The window doesn't open. There's nothing I can do. And he said, "Do something." And this is the same guy who was like, so anti whatever I was doing.
Of course.
He said, "Do something. The bird is dying." And I said, "I see that the bird is dying, but there is nothing I can do because the window doesn't open and I don't have a crane." And there's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. Oh, you won't do anything. So then everybody comes back, and I asked him to share his experience. I gave him the microphone. I said, share what happened just now. Oh, there is a bird dying on the window, and Rae won't do anything. She's a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite. And I let him, he was just going off about how I really didn't care, and I was lying to them about caring. Da, 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 da. And I let him go on about it for a while. And then I gave him that percentage. I said, Hasim, like, this is one of those times there's nothing you can do. Don't focus on that too much in your life. If there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. But I think 99% of the time, there's something you can do. Focus on that. Whenever you can do something, you do something. When you can't do something, if you focus on that too much, life will get very hard. And I think, especially now with everything that's going on in the world and in our country, and it's hard to remember that sometimes because there's so much going on that there's nothing we can do about it. But while that's all going on in the world and in the US and in our communities, while that's all going on, what can I do? I guarantee you that outweighs the number of things we can't do anything about. There's so much we can do for the smallest being among us or the largest area around us. There's so much. So I think that is a really important part of dealing with the despair that can come up when you know what you know about the suffering. Okay, let me really focus in on what can I do something about. So for me, like rescuing the animals, there's such joy in it. It's so much joy and laughter when they have their new homes. Or, I have a wonderful friend in Mexico, which is where we spend half the year. And she called me, she goes, Rae, just got word on a pelican with a broken wing 3 miles down the beach from the parking area. So we have to go down the beach 3 miles. There's no access. I said, I'm there. I'll come pick you up. Boom. So I go over there. Her husband goes, oh, I'll drive. I'm going to go too. So all 3 of us walked way down the beach. We had a blanket and a large metal crate. We're walking on the beach, and we go down and we see the pelican, and her wing was mangled. I don't know what happened. Sometimes it can just be a wave. You never know.
Yeah.
So she was just mangled, and then we tried to go toward her. She went back to the water, and we're like, no, because the waves would make it worse.
Right.
And then I said, we got to go in the water. And we both looked down at our shoes. We were wearing nice running shoes. I said,
No, of course.
I said, fuck the shoes. Let's do it. And so we ran in, we got her, we named her Breeze, and the veterinarian was waiting for us. And we got there, and he fixed that entire wing. It took many hours with little tiny plastic zip ties. Put the bones together. And then she needed about 2 months of rehab. And so she got that 2 months of rehab where there was water at someone's place. And then she was released. But just us coming down the beach, we were holding her. And then when she got really feisty, we put her inside the cage, and she was snap, snap, snap with that big pelican beak. But the joy we had, it was a long walk with all this. But we had a big smile. We were just in our hearts. We were so happy. We're like, we are going to help her. So I just think everybody knows for themselves, like, what is going to keep you engaged in life and not go into that deepest despair.
Yeah. I'm a big consumer of information. I go down the rabbit hole on my podcast guests. I love reading and watching and just learning, even though a lot of it is really unpleasant. But I have to force myself to find something positive to engage with. I watched yesterday the documentary Pig Little Lies. Have you seen that one? Okay, it was on Unchained. Do you know Jane?
Oh yeah.
You probably
Jane
know Jane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an Unchained created documentary called Pig Little Lies, and it was about the rescue of a couple of pigs, potbelly pigs from somewhere that it was going to be bad, and they took them in, and it was a whole kind of like sitcom type of uh, presentation, because of course then they found out that the female pig was pregnant, and
Of course.
is she going to have 6 babies? No, of course she's going to have 13. And it was just like Three's Company. Like, how many doors can we walk into in this one documentary? And they were really good at balancing. This bad thing could happen. Oh, there's another obstacle we're presented with. This bad thing could happen now this one. How are we going to deal with it? And of course, as you would expect, I mean, I guess I'm like, spoiler alert, there's a happy ending, but it's worth a watch, because it is one of those, that this team of activists went in to try and resolve a bad situation. What's the outcome going to be? And it was like, oh, okay, this is a little bit more soul nourishing than, say, getting through Earthlings, which I do think is important for everyone to watch, but that's wretched.
Oh my God. I call it an emotional machine gun. You don't have
Hmm.
time to even recover in that film before it's like
Yeah, right.
coming. And I also think it's important, like if there are people who are already acting on what they know, they are already making compassionate choices whenever possible. Don't watch that stuff. You don't need to be convinced anymore. It will
Hmm.
only take you down. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that it's compelling and it's hard to resist sometimes. Sometimes I don't resist it, but it's pointless. It is
Mm.
pointless to do that because you're already acting on what you know, unless you need the information.
Right, right.
It's a different story.
Yeah, no, I do think it would be valuable to put in, every eighth grade classroom or something. But,
Of course.
for
It's
those of us who already know it, why do I subject myself to it repeatedly? It's really kind of like, oh, let me just keep going back for more. Let me go. Like, that bucket of KFC is going to make you feel crappy, but you just keep going back for more.
right, exactly. I think like with in terms of having it in every, eighth grade classroom or whatever, I've worked in a lot of
I
schools,
know you have. Yeah.
and people will be like, oh, how could you expose the kids to that? And I'm like, oh, that's like nothing compared to
Mm,
what they're eating 3 times a day. And I want them to know, I want them to be critical thinkers. I want them to understand the reality.
yeah.
I went into one school in Philly, which at the time, I don't know if they still do, they allowed billboards close to the school, which some cities do not allow. And I walked in that classroom and I looked at the billboards and I changed what I was going to do with the kids. I said, oh, come to the window, look at these billboards. And now tell me the story you can tell me from those billboards. It was cigarette billboard, alcohol billboard, fast food burger, and a healthcare plan. It was all there.
Wow.
And they noticed things I didn't notice. Like they were pissed because one of them said, I don't like that they put Black people on the billboards by our school to get to us. And I'm like, oh, didn't even notice that. Okay. There were things they noticed, but I want them to look at the world and determine how they're going to be in it. That requires some critical thinking.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's just such an I mean, I love the way you approach things so kindly, compassionately. Like, you are definitely a born teacher, or spreader of information in the most gentle, caring way. But it is interesting that people are protective of hearing the truth, like it's somehow blasphemy, when no, it's actually the act itself that's troubling, not
Yeah,
my description of it.
exactly. I was out running with my dog and we were going by a bus stop with kids going to school and the parents were waiting a little bit behind them. And my dog quickly killed a squirrel. Like it
Oh,
happened so
yep,
fast. I was like,
yep.
whoa,
I
whoa.
have side hounds, so I it's
Oh,
happened.
there you go.
Yeah,
So then she was carrying
yep.
she had the squirrel and the face of the squirrel was in her mouth. And we're going past the kids and the moms were like yelling at the
Yeah.
kids, don't look, don't look. They were so freaked out.
Hmm.
Why'd you let your dog do that? Why are you letting our kids see it? They were like,
Uh-huh.
really pissed. I said, I understand you're upset. I said, but this is like a weird part of nature. That's an omnivore. And that's what she does. She had to survive a long time on her own before I rescued her. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, you shouldn't have come by the kids with that. And I was already there. I said, mm-hmm. Okay, I see you're upset. This is like all these moms and one dad. Oh, I said, I see you're upset, but I have a question. What did your kids have for dinner last night? And they were like, I said, just curious what they had for dinner. Mm-hmm. And a few of them said what they had for dinner. Well, what does that have to do with this? I said, everything. There's so much more long suffering and violence in what you served them for dinner last night than is happening right here with this dog. And they looked just kind of puzzled for a while. Mm-hmm. And I said, just think about it. I'm off on my run. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yep. They'll be driving their kids to school tomorrow.
Exactly. No more bus stop. Anybody could come by.
Good. That's good. I love it. Yeah. Oh, God, Rae, we could do this all day long, but I do want to respect the audience's time. I love your message. It's so powerful, and I love what you're doing in the world. So please tell the audience more about what you are doing, where to learn more about you.
So we still have our website, and it is Plant Peace, this kind of peace, yes. daily.org. I don't know that my current email is on there. I'm fine if people email me directly if they have questions, and people do this a lot, like this situation came up with my family, and family's the most challenging, of course, because we have higher expectations of these people we're related to. So yeah.
I have to interrupt you one sec. Yeah. I heard you say that in another interview, and it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, because I have been walking around thinking, why do I get angrier at my immediate family than I do about my best friend? And all of them eat the same way. Why do I give her a little bit of a pass and not my family? And I heard you say that, and I was like, well, that explains it. It's not just me.
Yeah, it's definitely, family is challenging in that, we grew up with them. We think they're going to take a similar evolutionary path as we are. Oh, they care like I care. They're intelligent. We have a lot of stories about our families.
Yeah.
And we want them to know us, love us, and respect us. That's all a bunch of big expectations. You can let all that go. It's like we have chosen family and we have blood family. And often chosen family is a lot easier to kind of do your dance in the world with. Blood family.
So I interrupted you. I'm sorry. So people can reach out to you.
Say my email. So it is RaeSikora, RaeSikora at iCloud.com. And just, if I don't get to it right away, it just means I'm probably in the middle of some crazy rescue.
I was just going to say, you're saving an animal. That takes precedent. Yeah.
Or I'm dancing, or I'm hiking.
Yay. Because you got to balance out the rescue work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So before we say goodbye, I have a really important question for you. Oh. As a 50-year vegan lifestyle veteran, what is your favorite thing to eat or drink?
Oh, favorite. You're going to think I'm so boring, but anyway, favorite thing.
No, I mean, this is to inspire the audience who thinks that like they're only stuck having romaine lettuce for the rest of their lives.
Okay. 2 favorite things to drink. Hibiscus that I make it all the time in Mexico. It's called Jamaica there. And basically it's just hibiscus leaves and water. And it's just this red, wonderful drink that I love. And lemon water. Those are my drinks. Mm-hmm. The first food that came up when you said favorite food was this homemade vegan alfredo sauce that I make over quinoa brown rice pasta. How does that sound?
I would like to get that recipe from you because my attempts at a vegan Alfredo have not been very successful, I'll be honest.
Oh, this is the dreamy one. This is the one that you can freeze it and pull it out anytime. Simple ingredients. And if you have it frozen, you can even take it when you travel, like we did when we went to Hawaii. My friends and I went to Hawaii, and my friend pulled out a jar of vegan Alfredo she had brought with her.
That's so good.
I'll get the recipe to you.
Thank you.
And
it's funny that
delight with you. You're just wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny what you said about hibiscus. I believe it's Dr. Greger that touts hibiscus.
Yeah, he does.
Okay, I think I read that in one of his books that like that is the ultimate thing to create a beverage out of.
Yeah, it's easy, yummy, and when people, it's beautiful. It's red, gorgeous. But yeah, people will get it when they come to my house. I always have it in the refrigerator, and they'll be like, "What is this?" And when they hear how simple it is, they're like, "Really? That's all this is?"
That's all this is. Just a plant. Rae, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your compassion. I love it all.
Thank you for the same. Great to connect with you.
Likewise. It's so thrilling that I had the chance to speak directly with Rae Sikora, someone I admire so deeply, and I'm glad you were here for the conversation. Now let's get into the juicy bits. Number one, when we pay for something at a store or a restaurant, we have to think, what are we supporting? There are so many things that go on behind closed doors that we don't know about, but our dollars are supporting. Number two, if you're a vegan who's speaking to a non-vegan, you might ask, would you like to know more? But it's important to read the room and recognize if it's a good time to bring something up or not. Number three, imagine a door on someone's heart. And from the conversation you're having, that door is either going to open wider or slam shut. And when we listen and try to understand someone else's perspective, that door opens more. Number four, for the ethical vegans out there, please know you don't have to convince anyone of anything. It's not your job to change someone, but merely plant a seed of possibility. Number five, those who are aware of the suffering that goes on in the animal agriculture industry have to work harder at balancing the nervous system because the despair we feel from what we've witnessed can be debilitating. Number six, our immune and nervous systems were not built to know and manage everything going on in the world, but because we have access to so much through modern day technology, we do know more than we should, and most of us can't handle it. So again, balancing the nervous system is critical. Number seven, continuing on with this concept, it's important for vegans to recognize that we can't save every animal on our own, but we can save some. Number eight, it might seem like there's times we can't do anything, but 99% of the time, we can do something. So focus on that 99%. And number nine, Rae's food recommendations include hibiscus water, lemon water, and vegan Alfredo sauce over quinoa brown rice pasta. Fantastic. I am so thankful that Rae came on the show, and you can check out her links in the show notes. And please take a moment to give this show a like, a follow, subscribe, give it a 5-star rating, and please write a short review on Apple because that really helps. It helps people find this show and see the value in listening. So I would really appreciate that. And I hope to see you right back here in 2 weeks for my Earth Day episode with the amazing Rachel Dahm, who is the founder and young genius behind Rooted Living. And as always, it's with a heart full of gratitude and a fridge full of veggies that I send you peace, love, and chickpeas. Mwah!